At my promotion dinner, my sister grabbed my husband's hand and said I'm pregnant. They expected me to crumble and hand over half my fortune. Instead, I pulled out an envelope they forgot existed. Their faces turned ghost white. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, grab a warm cup of tea and get comfortable. I'd love to know what time of day you're watching this video. Please comment M for morning, A for afternoon, or E for evening. Now, let me take you into this story. Actually, Val, we have some news to share, too. My sister's voice cut through the ambient jazz of the restaurant like a serrated knife. I stopped mid-sentence. My fork, loaded with a piece of expensive sea bass, hovered halfway to my mouth. I looked across the table, expecting to see a smile, maybe an announcement about a new job or a new apartment. Instead, I saw a hand. My sister, Stacy, reached across the white tablecloth. Her fingers, manicured in a bright, aggressive shade of red, locked onto the hand of the man sitting next to her. My husband, Derek. The air in the Velvet Oak suddenly felt very thin. The clinking of silverware, the murmur of the other diners, the soft patter of the Seattle rain against the windowpane, it all just vanished into a high-pitched ringing in my ears. I watched, paralyzed, as Derek didn't pull away. He didn't laugh it off. He didn't look at me. He just stared at the bread basket like it was the most fascinating thing in the world, his face a mask of sweaty, guilty terror. Stacy squeezed his hand, a gesture of ownership that made my stomach turn over. She looked me dead in the eye, her chin tilted up in that defiant way she had used since we were teenagers. I'm pregnant, she said. The words hung there, heavy and toxic. And it's Derek's. The world stopped. Literally stopped. You know that feeling when you miss a step on the stairs and your stomach drops into your shoes? Multiply that by 1,000,000. That was the moment my life, as I knew it, ceased to exist. Before I tell you what happened next, before I tell you about the screaming, the silence, and the secret envelope that would eventually wipe those smug looks off their faces, I need to back up. I need you to understand how we got here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story. It's not an easy one to tell, but I think it's important. Before we go on, let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's go back to earlier that afternoon. It was a Thursday in November, and Seattle was doing what it does best, raining. But for once, the gray sky didn't bother me. I was driving my Tesla down I-5, the wipers working in a rhythmic hypnotic beat, and I was practically vibrating with energy. I had just come out of a 3-hour meeting with the board of directors at the logistics firm where I've spent the last 7 years of my life. They had finally done it. They had offered me the position of Chief Operating Officer. Cool. I was 32 years old, and I was going to be running operations for one of the biggest supply chain companies in the Pacific Northwest. The new salary package was incredible, nearly double what I was making, plus stock options that would set me up for life. As I navigated the wet streets toward downtown, all I could think about was sharing this with Derek. We had been married for 5 years. 5 years of me working late nights, 5 years of me carrying the financial load while he figured out his career in sales. He had bounced from selling insurance to selling solar panels, and finally to selling luxury cars, though his commissions were always inconsistent. This changes everything, I whispered to myself, gripping the steering wheel. I had it all planned out. Tonight, at the Velvet Oak, our favorite high-end steakhouse, I was going to buy the most expensive bottle of Cabernet on the menu. I was going to tell Derek that we could finally afford that house on Lake Washington he had been drooling over. The one with the boat dock and the floor-to-ceiling windows. I wanted to see his face light up. I wanted to feel like we were a team, winning together. I arrived at the restaurant 20 minutes early. That's just who I am. I'm Valerie. I'm the organizer, the planner, the one who shows up early to make sure everything is perfect. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I was wearing my power color, a deep emerald green dress that Derek always said made my eyes pop. I looked successful. I looked happy. I walked into the restaurant, the warmth of the heater wrapping around me like a blanket. The maitre d', a kind older man named Henri who knew me by name, smiled warmly. "Table for 3, Mrs. Sterling?" he asked. "Yes, please, Henri. The corner booth if possible. We're celebrating tonight." "Of course. Congratulations on whatever the occasion is." I sat in that plush leather booth, sipping sparkling water, watching the rain streak the glass. I felt a profound sense of gratitude. I thought about my sister, Stacy. I had invited her because I wanted my family to be part of this. Stacy had always struggled. She was the free spirit, the artist who never quite made art, the one who always needed a little help with rent. I thought, maybe with this raise, I can help her set up a proper studio. Maybe I can finally fix her life, too. God, I was so naive. I was sitting there, planning how to give them the world, while they were driving toward me, planning how to destroy mine. I checked my watch. They were 10 minutes late. Typical Derek. He was probably stuck in traffic, or he had lost his keys again. I sent a quick text, "I'm here." Started without you, winky face. 5 minutes later, I saw them walk through the heavy wooden doors. And immediately, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. You know that instinct? That primal alarm bell that rings deep in your gut before your brain even processes what's wrong? It was ringing loud and clear. It wasn't just that they were together. Stacy lived on the way, so it made sense for them to carpool. It was the way they walked in. Stacy was glowing. And I don't mean that I just had a good facial kind of glow. She looked frantic, manic, almost vibrating with a strange, high-voltage energy. She was wearing a tight, bright pink dress that was completely out of character for her. Stacy usually lived in oversized sweaters and leggings, constantly complaining about her body image. But tonight, she was strutting through the dining room like she owned the place, her coat draped over her arm, head held high, scanning the room until her eyes locked on me. Then there was Derek. If Stacy looked like she had just won the lottery, Derek looked like he was walking to the electric chair. He was pale. Even from across the room, under the dim, romantic lighting of the restaurant, I could see the sheen of sweat on his forehead. He was fiddling with his tie, loosening it, then tightening it, then loosening it again. He walked a step behind Stacy, his shoulders hunched, his eyes darting around the room as if he were looking for an emergency exit. "Hey! You guys made it." I stood up, putting on my best smile, trying to shake off the sudden cold feeling in my chest. "Val." Stacy squealed, loud enough that a couple at a nearby table turned to look. She rushed forward and hugged me. It was a tight, suffocating hug. She smelled of her usual vanilla perfume, but underneath it, there was something else, the scent of rain and Derek's cologne? I pulled back, trying to read her face. Her pupils were dilated. She was grinning, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was a predatory smile. "Hi, honey," I said, turning to Derek. I leaned in to kiss him on the cheek. He flinched. It was subtle, a tiny jerk of his head, but I felt it. He barely brushed his lips against my cheek, his skin cold and clammy. "Hey, Val," he mumbled, refusing to meet my eyes. He slid into the booth, sitting as far away from me as the leather seating allowed. "Is everything okay?" I asked, sitting back down. The traffic out there looked like a nightmare. "Did you guys get stuck on the bridge?" "Oh, it wasn't that bad," Stacy chirped, sliding in next to Derek. Not across from him. Next to him. We actually stopped for coffee on the way. We needed to talk. Talk? I looked between them. About what? Derek picked up the menu, burying his face in it. "Just family stuff, Val. Don't worry about it. Let's order." I'm starving. But his voice cracked. He didn't sound starving, he sounded like he was about to be sick. The waiter appeared, saving us from the awkward silence. Good evening. Can I start you with a bottle of wine? Yes, I said immediately. We'll take the Caymus, please. The special selection. Actually, Stacy interrupted, her voice sharp. No wine for me. Just water with lemon. And Derek shouldn't drink either. He's driving. I frowned. We can Uber home, Stace. It's a celebration. No, Stacy insisted, glancing sideways at Derek. No alcohol. It's better that way. I slowly lowered the wine list. The alarm bells in my head were now a deafening siren. Stacy, who never turned down a glass of free expensive wine, was ordering water. Derek, who loved a scotch to unwind after work, was staring at the tablecloth like it contained the secrets of the universe. Okay, I said slowly. Just sparkling water for the table then. The waiter nodded and retreated, sensing the tension. I took a deep breath. Don't let this ruin the night, I told myself. Maybe they had an argument. Maybe Derek lost a sale at the dealership and he's embarrassed to tell me. I decided to push through. I had great news, and maybe my good news would lift the mood. So, I began, clasping my hands on the table. I know everyone seems a bit stressed, but I have something to tell you that I think will cheer us all up. Derek finally looked up. His eyes were wide, fearful. He looked like a deer in headlights. Val, wait. He started, his voice barely a whisper. No, let me go first, I said, smiling, though it felt forced now. I had my meeting with the board today. I paused for dramatic effect. Stacy was watching me with that weird, intense smile, tapping her fingernails on the table. Tap. 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 It was infuriating. They offered me the COO position, I said, letting the pride seep into my voice. It's official. And the salary increase, guys, it's huge. It's more than I ever imagined. I looked at Derek, waiting for the relief to wash over his face. Waiting for the smile. That means we can do it, Derek, I continued, leaning forward. We can put the offer in on the Lake Washington house. The one with the dock. We can move next month. Derek let out a sound that was half choke, half groan. He closed his eyes. That's great, Val, he whispered. Really great. Great? Stacy let out a short, sharp laugh. It sounded like glass breaking. Of course, it's great. You always win, don't you, Valerie? The big job. The big money. The big house. Her tone wasn't celebratory. It was dripping with venom. Stacy? I asked, confused. What's wrong? She didn't answer me. Instead, she turned her body toward Derek. She reached out her hand, that hand with the aggressive red nails, and covered his hand where it rested on the table. He didn't pull away. My heart hammered against my ribs. What is going on? I demanded, my voice trembling. Stacy looked back at me. The mask of the loving sister dropped completely. In its place was something cold, hard, and triumphant. Actually, Val, she said, squeezing my husband's hand. We have some news to share, too. Time does funny things during a trauma. Scientists say your brain goes into hyperfocus, recording every detail in high definition while simultaneously slowing down perception. I can tell you exactly what the button on Derek's shirt looked like. It was slightly chipped. I can tell you that the table to my left was ordering the ribeye. I can tell you that the rain outside had turned into a downpour, hammering against the glass. We have some news, Stacy repeated. My eyes were glued to their joined hands. It looked so unnatural. My husband's hand, the hand I had held during our wedding vows, the hand I held when his mother passed away, the hand I held just this morning before I left for work, was now interlaced with my sister's fingers. "I'm pregnant," Stacy said. The words landed like physical blows. 1, 2. I blinked. My brain tried to reject the information. Pregnant? Stacy is pregnant? Who is the father? Why is she holding Derek's hand? And, she continued, her voice gaining strength, almost bragging now, it's Derek's. The air left my lungs. It felt like I had been punched in the gut, hard. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. I looked at Derek, begging him, pleading with him silently to laugh. To pull his hand away. To say, "Val, she's crazy. She's joking. This is a sick prank." But Derek didn't laugh. Derek? I managed to choke out. My voice sounded small, like a child's. He finally looked at me. His eyes were red-rimmed and wet. "I'm sorry, Val," he whispered. It just happened." "It just happened?" I repeated. The volume of my voice was rising. "You got my sister pregnant and it just happened? Like a car accident? Like rain?" "We fell in love, Valerie," Stacy interjected. She sounded annoyed, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "We didn't plan for this. But these past few months, while you were so busy with your big meetings and your business trips, Derek and I found each other." "Found each other?" I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor, toppling over with a crash. The entire restaurant went silent. Henri, the maitre d', took a step toward us but stopped, sensing the volatility of the situation. "You were sleeping together?" I looked from one to the other. "In my house? While I was at work?" "Not in the house," Derek said quickly, as if that minor detail somehow absolved him of the sin. "At Stacy's apartment." Mostly, I repeated. I felt bile rising in my throat. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. The room was spinning. "Sit down, Val. You're making a scene," Stacy hissed, looking around at the other diners. "They expected you to act like this. Drama queen. Just sit down and let's discuss this like adults." "Adults?" I laughed. It was a hysterical, jagged sound. "You're sleeping with your brother-in-law, and you want to talk about being adults?" "We're a family," Stacy said, and her voice took on a wheedling, manipulative tone that I recognized from our childhood. "And there is a baby coming. Your niece or nephew. We need to figure out how this is going to work." "How this is going to work?" I stared at her. "There is no us, Stacy. There is no figuring this out." "Well, actually, there is," she said, leaning back and resting a hand on her stomach. She couldn't be more than a few weeks along, but she was rubbing her belly like she was 9 months pregnant. "Derek and I want to be together. We're going to be a family. And considering your new promotion..." She paused, exchanging a look with Derek. And then the other shoe dropped. It wasn't just about love. It wasn't just about the baby. "Considering I'm making more money now," I said slowly, the pieces clicking into place. "You think, what? That I'm going to support this? That I'm going to pay for your happy little family?" Derek cleared his throat. He looked a little more confident now that Stacy had taken the lead. "Val, look. We know the timing is bad. But we need a place to live. Stacy's apartment is too small for a baby. And the house on Lake Washington, well, you don't really need a place that big for just yourself, do you?" I stared at him. The man I had supported for 5 years. The man whose student loans I had paid off. The man whose car payments I covered every month because his commissions were light. He wasn't just breaking my heart. He was trying to pick my pocket while he did it. "You want the house," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "We think it would be fair," Stacy said. "As a settlement. You keep your career, you keep your stocks. We get the house. And maybe some spousal support for Derek, since he'll be helping me with the baby and won't be able to work as much." The sheer, unadulterated audacity hit me so hard I almost sat back down. They had planned this. They had discussed it. They had probably looked up property values and calculated alimony percentages while lying in bed together. I looked at Derek. I looked at Stacy. And something inside me snapped. The sadness evaporated, replaced by a cold, white-hot rage. But I knew if I stayed there 1 second longer, I would pick up the steak knife and do something that would land me in prison. "I'm leaving," I said. "Val, wait!" Derek called out. "We need to settle this." "Don't follow me," I said. I grabbed my purse. I didn't look back. I walked straight past Henri, who looked horrified, and pushed through the heavy doors into the cold, wet Seattle night. The rain hit my face like ice water, shocking me back to reality. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking so badly I dropped them into a puddle. "Damn it!" I screamed, a raw, guttural sound that was swallowed by the roar of the traffic. I bent down to retrieve them, mud soaking the hem of my emerald green dress, the dress I had felt so powerful in just an hour ago. Now, I felt like a fool. A clown in a designer costume. Behind me, the restaurant door opened. I stiffened, ready to fight. "Valerie! Stop being so dramatic!" It was Stacy. Of course, it was Stacy. Derek was too much of a coward to chase me. She stood under the awning, dry and smug, hugging her arms around herself. "You can't just run away. We need to talk about the logistics." I straightened up, clutching my muddy keys. "Logistics? You just blew up my life, and you want to talk about logistics?" "Oh, stop playing the victim," she scoffed. "You've always been cold, Val. You're married to your job." Derek was lonely. He needed someone who actually appreciated him. Someone who didn't treat him like an employee. I paid his debts. I yelled, not caring who heard me. I bought his clothes. I encouraged him every single day. "You bought him things," Stacy corrected, waving her hand dismissively. "That's all you know how to do. Throw money at problems. But you didn't see him." "I saw him." "You saw his wallet," I spat. "And you saw my lifestyle. That's what you saw." Stacy's eyes narrowed. "You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me because Mom and Dad liked me better. And now, I'm giving them the one thing you never could. A grandchild." That stung. It was a low blow, aimed with surgical precision. Stacy knew we had been trying, or rather, I had been trying, and Derek had been making excuses, for 2 years. "Go to hell, Stacy," I said, my voice trembling. "We're going to fight for what's fair," she called out as I unlocked my car. "Derek is entitled to half. Washington is a community property state, Val. Half of everything. The stocks, the savings, the new house. Don't make this ugly, or we'll take you for everything you have." I slammed the car door shut, cutting off her voice. I locked the doors. I sat there in the silence of the Tesla, the rain drumming a frantic rhythm on the roof. My breathing was ragged. Community property state. She was right. Washington laws were strict. Without a prenuptial agreement, assets acquired during the marriage were split 50-50. My mind raced. My savings. My retirement accounts. The stock options I had just been awarded. I started the car and peeled out of the parking lot, leaving my sister standing there with a smirk on her face. As I drove, the shock began to morph into something else. Memories started flooding back. Not of the last few months, but of the last few years. The red flags I had ignored. I have to work late tonight, Val. Inventory count. That was a lie. Stacy's car broke down again, I need to go jump it. That was a lie. You're too controlling, Val. You make me feel small. That was manipulation. They had been playing me for a fool. And the worst part? It wasn't just Derek. It was Stacy. My little sister. The girl I had protected on the playground. The girl whose science projects I had done for her. The girl whose rent I had paid 6 times in the last 2 years because the freelance market is tough. She hadn't just stolen my husband. She had been scouting my life. Every time she came over for dinner, every time she asked about my bonus structure, every time she admired my jewelry, she was taking inventory. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from Derek. Val, please come back. We can't leave things like this. Stacy is really upset. You're stressing the baby. I let out a harsh, bitter laugh. Stressing the baby. He was already using the pregnancy as a shield. I didn't reply. I just drove. I didn't know where I was going at first, just that I needed to put distance between me and the Velvet Oak. But the car seemed to know the way home. Home. The condo downtown. The place that was filled with our wedding photos. The place where his toothbrush was sitting next to mine. I merged onto the highway, the city lights blurring through my tears. I felt a wave of nausea. How could I have been so blind? I was a COO. My job was to see problems before they happened, to analyze risk, to manage assets. And yet, the biggest risk to my life had been sleeping in my bed and eating at my table. Stupid, I whispered to the empty car. Stupid, stupid, stupid. But as the skyline of Seattle rose up before me, another thought crept in. A memory from 5 years ago. A rainy afternoon much like this one. A lawyer's office. A document that Derek had laughed at. Wait. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. Did I still have it? I tried to remember where I put it. The safe? The storage unit? Had I thrown it away during the spring cleaning last year? Stacy's voice echoed in my head. Washington is a community property state. Maybe, I whispered, a tiny spark of hope igniting in the darkness of my despair. Maybe not. The windshield wipers slapped back and forth, swish, 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 like a metronome counting down the moments of my past. Driving home that night, my mind drifted back to a specific day when I was 12 years old. It was the day I learned my place in the family hierarchy. We were in the backyard. Stacy was 7. She was a delicate child, born premature, with big blue eyes that could summon tears on command. I was the sturdy one. The responsible one. Valerie the Valiant, my dad used to joke, but there was no warmth in it. It just meant I was expected to handle things. I was pushing Stacy on the swing set. Higher, Val. Higher, she screamed, giggling. Hold on tight, Stace, I warned. Not too high. Higher, she demanded. She was always demanding. Even then, she had an insatiable need for more. More height, more candy, more attention. I pushed her one more time. She let go. To this day, I don't know if she slipped or if she let go on purpose to see what would happen. She flew through the air and landed hard on the grass. Snap. Her arm. The scream she let out pierced the neighborhood. My mother came running out of the house. She didn't check on me. She didn't ask what happened. She scooped Stacy up, and then she turned to me. The look on her face, it was pure hatred. "What did you do?" she hissed. "You know she's fragile. Why are you always trying to hurt her?" "I didn't," I cried. "She asked me to push her." "You're the older sister," Mom yelled. "It is your job to protect her." "You are selfish, Valerie. Careless and selfish." That narrative stuck. For 20 years, I was the selfish one because I was capable. Because I got straight A's without needing a tutor. Because I got a scholarship to college so they could save their money for Stacy's art school, which she quit after one semester. I remembered the day I bought my first car, a used Honda. I worked 2 jobs in college to pay for it. When I brought it home, expecting my parents to be proud, my dad just kicked the tires and said, "Must be nice to have that kind of disposable income. Your sister is struggling to pay for her bus pass, you know." The guilt. They weaponized it. They installed a button in my brain that said "Give to Stacy," and they pressed it every time I achieved anything. When I got my first big promotion, I paid off Stacy's credit card debt, $5,000. When I got my bonus, I paid for Mom and Dad's cruise. When I married Derek, Stacy cried at the wedding because she was still single, so I let her bring a +1 and paid for his flight, hotel, and meals. I had spent my entire life trying to buy their love, trying to prove I wasn't the selfish sister who broke Stacy's arm. And what did it get me? It got me here. Driving alone in the rain while my sister and my husband planned how to carve up my assets like a holiday turkey. Stacy didn't love Derek. I knew that in my bones. Stacy loved what Derek represented, me. She wanted my life. She wanted my house. She wanted to be the one sitting in the corner booth at the Velvet Oak. Taking Derek wasn't about passion, it was about theft. It was the ultimate way to prove that she was finally the winner. I pulled into the parking garage of my condo building. The automatic gate rumbled open, a heavy, metallic sound that felt like a prison door closing behind me. I parked the Tesla in my spot. Next to it was an empty space. Derek's spot. There was a small oil stain on the concrete from his old BMW, the car I paid to repair 3 months ago. I stared at that oil stain. "I am not selfish," I said aloud. The sound of my own voice startled me. "I am generous. I am loyal. And I am done." I got out of the car. My legs felt heavy, but my mind was starting to clear. The shock was receding, replaced by a cold, calculating clarity. It was the same mindset I used when I had to fire an underperforming vendor or restructure a failing department at work. Analyze the situation. Assess the damage. Mitigate the risk. I walked to the elevator. I pressed the button for the penthouse floor. As the numbers ticked up, a new fear gripped me. What if the document wasn't there? What if Derek had found it? What if, in one of his cleaning moods, which were rare but happened, he had thrown it out? I remembered the day we signed it. 5 years ago. Derek had been hungover. He had been out with his buddies for his bachelor party the night before. He showed up to the lawyer's office smelling of stale beer and mints. "Do we really need to do this, Val?" he had whined, rubbing his temples. "It's so unromantic. It's like you're planning for us to fail." "It's just standard procedure, Derek," I had told him gently. My lawyer insisted. "Because of the condo." "Whatever," he had sighed, grabbing the pen. "I don't care about your money, babe. I just want you." He signed it. He didn't read a single page. He just signed it so he could go home and nap. "Please," I prayed as the elevator doors opened. "Please let me have kept it." I unlocked the front door. The apartment was dark and quiet. The smell of Derek's cologne still lingered in the hallway. I didn't turn on the lights. I walked straight to the master bedroom closet. The condo was silent, but it was a loud kind of silence. It screamed of him. His running shoes were kicked off by the door, muddy, of course. He never cleaned them. His favorite Seahawks hoodie was draped over the back of the sofa. A half-drunk coffee mug sat on the kitchen island, a ring of brown stain forming on the expensive quartz countertop I had paid for. Usually, I would pick these things up. I would wipe the counter, hang up the hoodie, align the shoes. I was the maid, the banker, the cheerleader. Tonight, I looked at that coffee mug and felt a surge of repulsion so strong I almost threw up. I walked past it all. I went into the bedroom. The bed was unmade. Derek had slept late this morning while I was already at the office preparing for my board meeting. The pillows still bore the indentations of his head. I stripped the sheets. I couldn't help it. I tore the duvet off, ripped the pillowcases free, and threw everything into a pile in the corner. I couldn't sleep in sheets that smelled like him. Not anymore. My phone buzzed again. 3:12 a.m. It was Derek. Val, I'm at Stacy's. We need to talk about the condo tomorrow. Since you're getting that huge raise, it's only fair you move out. Stacy needs the space for the nursery. We can figure out a payment plan to buy you out over time, maybe 20 years? Let's be adults about this. I stared at the screen, the blue light illuminating my face in the dark room. He wanted me to move out. He wanted the condo. He wanted a payment plan over 20 years. Meaning, he wanted me to finance his life with my sister, in my home, while he paid me back pennies on the dollar with money he didn't have. Delusional, I whispered. You are absolutely delusional. But the text confirmed one thing, they were coming for the assets. They weren't just going to leave and start a new life. They wanted to parasite off the host one last time. I dropped the phone on the mattress and knelt down on the floor of the closet. I pulled back the heavy wool rug. Underneath was a loose floorboard. It wasn't a high-tech wall safe behind a painting, it was an old-school floor safe I had installed when I bought the place, before I even met Derek. He knew about the safe, but he never knew the combination. He was too lazy to remember numbers. That's your secret stash, babe, he used to joke. Keep your diamonds in there. My hands were shaking as I spun the dial. Right to 18. My birthday. Left to 04. The day I graduated college. Right to 22. The day I bought this condo. Click. The sound was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. I lifted the heavy steel lid. Inside were my passport, some emergency cash, my grandmother's pearl necklace, and a thick, manila envelope. I held my breath as I reached for it. The paper felt cool and smooth. It was heavy. I opened the clasp and slid the contents out. Prenuptial agreement between Valerie Sterling and Derek Miller. I flipped through the pages. My eyes scanned the legal jargon, searching for the clauses I hoped were there. It had been 5 years. Memories fade. Had I been soft? Had I given him loopholes? Page 3, Separation of Assets. All assets acquired prior to the marriage, and all assets acquired during the marriage resulting from the sole employment or investment of wife, shall remain the sole property of wife. Page 7, The condo. The property located at 1200 Pike Street is designated as separate property of wife. And then, the kicker. The clause I had completely forgotten about. Page 12, the infidelity clause. In the event of dissolution of marriage due to proven infidelity, the offending party forfeits any and all claims to spousal support and agrees to an immediate vacating of the marital residence. I sat back on my heels, clutching the document to my chest. I started to laugh. It was a quiet, shaking laugh that eventually turned into tears, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. Derek hadn't just signed a standard prenup. He had signed a death warrant for his greed. He had been so arrogant, so sure that I would never leave him, or so drunk that he didn't care, that he had waived everything. I had the gun. All I had to do was pull the trigger. But not yet. If I showed them this now, they would panic. They would lawyer up. They would try to claim he was coerced, or that he was intoxicated, which he was, but his lawyer had signed off on it, certifying his competence. No. I needed to trap them. I needed them to admit everything. I needed them to demand everything, on record, before I dropped the hammer. I put the document back in the envelope. I put the envelope back in the safe. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rainy Seattle skyline. The Space Needle was glowing in the distance. You want to be adults? I whispered to the city. Okay. Let's play. I didn't sleep. I spent the rest of the night cleaning. I scrubbed the toilets. I reorganized the pantry. I Windexed the mirrors until they were invisible. It was manic energy, burning off the adrenaline. By 7 a.m., the sun was trying to peek through the gray clouds. I made a pot of strong black coffee. At 7:05 a.m., my phone rang. Mom. I stared at the screen. Stacy had obviously called them. The flying monkeys were being deployed. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello, Mother. Valerie, her voice was tight, high-pitched. Stacy called me. She was crying hysterically. Was she? I took a sip of coffee. Did she tell you why? She said you stormed out of dinner. She said you threatened to leave them destitute. Valerie, how could you? How could I? I gripped the phone. Mom, she is sleeping with my husband. She is pregnant with his child. I know, Mom said, her tone softening into that dismissive boys will be boys voice she used. It's unfortunate. It's messy. But honey, these things happen. Passion happens. You have to understand, Stacy has been very lonely lately. And Derek, well, you know Derek needs a lot of attention. Are you blaming me? I asked, incredulous. Are you actually blaming me for my sister sleeping with my husband? I'm not blaming anyone, she sighed. I'm just saying, you've always been so focused on your career. Maybe if you were home more. Stop, I said. Just stop. Listen to me, Valerie, her voice hardened. What's done is done. There is an innocent baby involved. My grandchild. Your blood. So, you need to step up. You are the successful one. You have millions, Valerie. Stacy has nothing. Derek has nothing. You need to do the right thing. The right thing? Let them have the condo, Mom said. Just like that. Like she was asking me to pass the salt. You can buy another one. You can buy 10 condos. Let them have the apartment so the baby has a stable home. And don't fight them on the money. You don't need it. Don't be greedy, Valerie. Don't be like your Aunt Carol. Aunt Carol was the family pariah because she refused to lend money to my dad's failed business ventures in the 90s. You want me to give my house to the people who betrayed me? They are family. Mom shouted. Family comes first. Always. If you sue them, if you kick them out on the street, you are disowning us all. Do you hear me? I won't have a heartless daughter. I closed my eyes. For 32 years, I had feared that sentence. I won't have a heartless daughter. I had run myself ragged trying to avoid it. But today, the words didn't hurt. They just clarified things. Okay, Mom, I said calmly. Okay? She sounded surprised. So you'll do it? You'll give them the condo? I'll think about it, I lied. I need a few days to process. Good, she breathed a sigh of relief. Good girl. I knew you'd come around. We raised you better than to hold grudges. I'll tell Stacy to call you later to arrange the key exchange. Don't tell her to call me, I said. I'll call her when I'm ready. I hung up. Then, I did something I should have done 10 years ago. I opened my banking app. I went to the standing transfer labeled Mom and Dad Allowance, $1,500 a month. Cancel transfer. Confirm. Then I went to the transfer labeled Stacy Rent Help. Cancel transfer. Confirm. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Family comes first, I repeated her words. You're right, Mom. And from now on, I am my own family. I had one more call to make. The most important one. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name, Monica Vance, Family Law. Monica wasn't just a lawyer. She was a shark in a Prada suit. We had gone to college together. She had warned me about Derek 5 years ago. She had called him a golden retriever with a credit card problem. I pressed dial. Val? Monica answered on the first ring. It's 7:30 a.m. You never call this early unless someone died or you're in jail. Neither, I said. But I need you to clear your schedule. Why? Because Derek got Stacy pregnant. And I need to invoke the nuclear option. There was a pause on the other end. Then, the sound of a chair scraping back. I'll have the coffee ready, Monica said. Bring the prenup. Bring the tax returns. And Val? Yeah? I'm going to make him cry. Good, I said. Because I'm done crying. Monica's office was on the 40th floor of a glass tower downtown, overlooking the rainy Puget Sound. It smelled of expensive leather and intimidation. I sat across from her, the manila envelope on the desk between us. Monica was reading the prenup, her glasses perched on the end of her nose. She was silent, flipping pages, her face unreadable. I was nervous. What if I was wrong? What if there was a loophole? Finally, she looked up. A slow, terrifying grin spread across her face. Val, she said softly. Who wrote this for you? Was it Old Man Jenkins? Yeah, I nodded. Before he retired. Remind me to send flowers to his nursing home, Monica tapped the document. This isn't a prenup, Val. This is a fortress. It's ironclad. He waived everything. Spousal support, equity in the home, retirement splitting. He even waived the right to contest the validity of the agreement unless he can prove fraud, which he can't. I let out a breath I had been holding for 12 hours. So they get nothing? Legally? Zero, Monica said. But we have a problem. What? The optics. And the nuisance factor, Monica leaned back. Washington is a no-fault divorce state. The courts don't care much about the affair regarding the divorce itself, usually. But this. She tapped the infidelity clause. This is specific. However, if he fights this, if he claims he was drunk or coerced, he can drag this out for 2 years. He can freeze your assets while we litigate. He can make your life hell. He can live in that condo until a judge orders him out. I can't live with him for 2 years, Monica. I know. That's why we need him to settle. We need him to agree to walk away voluntarily. He won't, I said. He thinks he's entitled to half. Stacy has him convinced. Then we need to scare him, Monica said. We need leverage. Did you bring the bank records? I nodded and handed over the USB drive I had downloaded that morning. Joint checking account. Credit cards. Monica plugged it into her computer. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Let's see what Romeo has been spending money on. We spent the next hour acting as forensic accountants. It was brutal. Here, Monica pointed at the screen. June 14th, $800 at Nordstrom. Did you get a bag? No, I said. Stacy has a new Gucci bag, Monica noted. I saw it on her Instagram. July 2nd. For $100 at the Edgewater Hotel. I flinched. I was in Chicago for a conference that weekend. So he took her to a hotel, Monica said, her voice flat. Classy. August 15th, $2,000 cash withdrawal. I asked him about that, I remembered. He said he needed it for a down payment on a car for a client who was paying him back. A bridge loan. Did the money ever come back? No. Monica looked at me with pity. He's been draining the joint account, Val. He's been funding their affair with your paycheck. I felt sick. It was one thing to cheat. It was another to make me pay for the hotel room. Okay, Monica said, spinning her chair around. Here is the plan. We don't file for divorce yet. What? If we file, he gets served, he gets a lawyer, he digs in. We lose the element of surprise. We need to ambush him. How? You tell him you're ready to talk, Monica plotted. You tell him you want to settle amicably. You set up a meeting. You act defeated. You make him think he's won. You get him and Stacy in a room, thinking they are about to sign the papers to get the condo. And then? And then, Monica slid the prenup back into the envelope. You drop the bomb. You show them this. You show them the credit card fraud, because spending joint funds on an affair can be argued as dissipation of marital assets. You threaten to sue Stacy for alienation of affection. It's a long shot in this state, but it will scare her. You terrify them so much that they sign a quitclaim deed on the condo right there on the spot just to stay out of jail. I looked at the envelope. It felt heavy again. But this time, it felt like a weapon. A meeting, I said. Back at the Velvet Oak. Poetic justice, Monica smiled. I love it. They want to meet anyway, I said. They want me to bring the deed. Perfect, Monica stood up. Go home. Pack his stuff. But don't kick him out yet. Play the part. Can you act, Val? I've thought about the last 5 years. Acting like I didn't mind paying the bills. Acting like I believed his excuses. Acting like everything was perfect. I've been acting for 5 years, Monica, I said, standing up and smoothing my skirt. I'm ready for my Oscar performance. I walked out of her office feeling different. The rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds over Seattle. I had a plan. I had a secret weapon. And I had a reservation to make. I drove home from Monica's office with a strange sense of calm. The rain had stopped, but the sky over Seattle was still a bruised purple, threatening another downpour. It matched my mood perfectly. As I navigated the traffic on I-5, my mind drifted back to the envelope sitting on the passenger seat. The prenup. The ironclad fortress, as Monica called it. For years, Derek had spun a narrative about that day. Whenever the topic of legal paperwork came up, usually when we were watching a movie or hearing about a celebrity divorce, he would laugh and say, "Man, I was so wasted when I signed ours. I probably signed away my kidney and didn't even know it." He made it into a joke. A charming anecdote about how much he loved me, how he trusted me so implicitly that he didn't even read the fine print. But as I drove, I allowed myself to access the real memory. Not his version. Mine. It was 4 years ago. We were in the conference room of my old lawyer, Mr. Jenkins. It wasn't early morning after a bender. It was 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Derek wasn't stumbling drunk. He was impatient. I remember it vividly now. He was checking his watch every 30 seconds. He had a tea time at 3:30 with some guys from the dealership, and he was annoyed that this paperwork was cutting into his leisure time. Mr. Miller, Mr. Jenkins had said, pushing the document across the mahogany table. I have arranged for an independent counsel for you, Mr. Henderson here, to review this with you. It is vital that you understand the waivers regarding spousal support and asset separation. Mr. Henderson, a young, earnest lawyer I had paid for to ensure fairness, tried to do his job. Derek, he said, tapping the document. You need to look at Article 4. If you divorce, you get nothing of the house. Nothing of her retirement. And you are waiving alimony forever. Given the income disparity, I strongly advise against signing this as is. Derek didn't even look at Mr. Henderson. He looked at me, rolling his eyes. Babe, he said, that charming grin plastered on his face. These guys are buzzkills, right? We're getting married. We're going to be together forever. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. I don't care about the legal mumbo-jumbo. It's for my protection, Derek, I had said softly. And yours. I know, he sighed, grabbing the pen. I'm signing it because I love you, Val. And because I trust you. And because if I don't leave in 10 minutes, I'm going to miss the back nine. He scribbled his signature. Derek Miller. A sloppy, hurried scrawl. He wasn't drunk. He was arrogant. He was so convinced of his own charm, so certain that he had me wrapped around his finger, that he couldn't conceive of a world where I would actually use this document against him. He thought he was the prize. He thought I was the lucky one to have landed him, the handsome, charismatic salesman, and that I would spend the rest of my life paying for the privilege. He signed away his future because he didn't respect me enough to read the contract. He saw me as a bank account that would never close. I pulled into my parking spot at the condo. The oil stain from his car was still there. You weren't drunk, Derek, I whispered to the empty garage. You were just lazy. And that laziness was about to cost him everything. I took the elevator up, clutching the envelope. I felt a new emotion rising up. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was disgust. I realized I had spent 5 years making excuses for a man who couldn't be bothered to read a document that defined his financial life. I had mistaken his incompetence for romance. I walked into the condo. It was quiet. The charity boxes I had started packing were stacked in the hallway. I went to my computer. I had one more task to do before the sun went down. Monica had told me to dig. To find the leverage. We knew about the money he spent on Stacy. But Monica, with her shark-like intuition, suspected there was more. Men like Derek, she had said, are rarely loyal to just one mistress. They need validation like they need oxygen. I sat down at my desk, cracking my knuckles. I had his old iPad. He had upgraded to a new one last month, on my credit card, of course, but he hadn't wiped the old one. He just threw it in a drawer. Laziness. It was his defining trait. I plugged it in. I guessed the passcode on the first try. 1234. I opened the folder labeled Finance, expecting nothing. But inside, buried deep, was an app icon I recognized. Not a banking app. Tinder. And next to it, Bumble. My heart didn't break this time. It hardened. It turned into diamond. I clicked open. The screen flickered to life, and with it, the secret life of my husband spilled out like garbage from a torn bag. I sat there for 3 hours. The sun went down, the city lights of Seattle flickered on outside my window, but I didn't move. I just scrolled. Screenshot. Save. Scroll. Screenshot. Save. It wasn't just Stacy. Stacy was just the one who got caught. Stacy was just the one who was foolish enough to get pregnant. There was Sarah Jim. There was Jessica Coffee Shop. There was Katie Lincoln Client. The messages went back years. Years. While I was working late to secure the promotion that paid for his lifestyle, he was copy-pasting the same pickup lines to dozens of women. To Sarah, my wife doesn't understand me. We're more like roommates. I need someone who sees the real me. To Jessica, I'm stuck in a loveless marriage for the sake of appearances. But when I saw you, I felt a spark I haven't felt in a decade. To Katie, she's a workaholic. She's cold. I'm just a guy looking for a little warmth. He painted me as the Ice Queen, the villain in his tragic life story. He used me to get sympathy sex. But the most pathetic part? The most gut-wrenching realization? Stacy wasn't special. I found his messages to Stacy. They started 6 months ago. Derek, hey Stace, Val is working late again. You want to come over and help me fix the sink? Stacy, LOL. You're bad. What if she comes home? Derek, she won't. She's married to the office. Come on. I bought that wine you like. He used the same lines on my sister that he used on the random girls from Tinder. He didn't fall in love with her. He didn't have a soul connection. He was just bored, horny, and she was convenient. She was there. She was insecure. She was easy prey. And Stacy? Reading her replies made my skin crawl. She wasn't a victim of his charm. She was an active participant in my humiliation. Stacy, you deserve so much better than her, Derek. She thinks she's so superior just because she makes money. I'd treat you like a king. Derek, you already do, babe. You're the only one who gets me. I laughed out loud in the empty apartment. A harsh, barking sound. Gets him? She didn't get him. She was just the only one dumb enough to buy his act without a credit check. Then I found the messages from 2 months ago. The pregnancy scare. Stacy, I'm late. I think I'm pregnant. Derek, F*****. Are you sure? You said you were on the pill. Stacy, I forgot a few days. Don't be mad. This could be a good thing, Derek. Think about it. Val just got that promotion. If we play this right, we can get set up. Derek, what do you mean? Stacy, I mean, she'll feel guilty. She's obsessed with family. If we present a united front, if we say we're in love, she might just give us the house to make the problem go away. She hates scandal. There it was. In black and white. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a miracle baby. It was a strategy. Stacy had trapped him, and then together, they had conspired to trap me. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, but it wasn't for the loss of my marriage. It was for the loss of my sister. I realized in that moment that the little girl I pushed on the swing set was dead. She had been replaced by this monster who viewed my pain as a business opportunity. I saved everything. I backed it up to the cloud. I backed it up to a USB drive. I emailed it to Monica. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I poured the rest of Derek's expensive scotch down the sink. The smell of the alcohol filled the air, pungent and sharp. You wanted scandal, Stacy? I whispered as I watched the amber liquid disappear down the drain. You wanted to leverage my fear of a scene? I rinsed the glass and set it on the drying rack. Be careful what you wish for. I picked up my phone. It was time to set the stage. I needed to give the performance of a lifetime. I needed to make them believe they had one. I dialed Stacy's number. It rang once. Twice. Hello? Her voice was guarded, but I could hear the anticipation underneath. Stacy, I said, pitching my voice to sound tired, broken. It's Val. I've been thinking about what Mom said. You have? Stacy's voice instantly shifted. The guard came down, replaced by a greedy sweetness that made my teeth ache. Oh, Val. I knew you'd be sensible. Mom was really worried about you. I'm tired, Stace, I said, letting a little wobble enter my voice. I can't fight you guys. I can't fight Mom and Dad. I just want this to be over. I totally understand, she cooed. I could practically hear her smiling through the phone. Fighting is so toxic. Think of the baby. Stress is really bad for the baby. Right. The baby. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing myself to stay in character. Look, I talked to a lawyer today. You did? Sharpness returned to her tone. Panic? Yeah. Just to see how to do the paperwork quickly, I lied smoothly. She said that since Washington is a community property state, and we don't really have, well, since we've been married 5 years, Derek is entitled to a fair share. Exactly! Stacy practically shouted. That's what we've been saying. It's the law, Val. It's only fair. So, I took a deep breath. I want to meet. I want to settle this. I don't want a long court battle. I just want to give you what you need so I can move on. That is so mature of you, Val. Really? She sounded like she was talking to a slow child. Derek will be so relieved. He's been feeling so guilty, you know. He really loves you, in his own way. But we just have this connection. Please, I cut her off gently. I can't hear about the connection right now. Right. Sorry. So, when do you want to meet? Tomorrow night, I said. Saturday. Let's go back to the Velvet Oak. The restaurant? She hesitated. Isn't that awkward? After last time? I think we need to rewrite that memory, I said. Plus, it's public. I think I need it to be public so I don't lose it. If we're at home, I might just scream. If we're in public, I'll be forced to be civil. I'll bring the papers. I'll bring the deed to the condo. The deed? I could hear the greed dripping from her lips. You're bringing the deed? Yes. If we can agree on terms, I'm ready to sign it over. I'll move out next week. You guys can have the nursery set up by Christmas. Oh my God, Val, she breathed. That is amazing. You're going to be the best aunt. Seriously. The best aunt. The audacity was breathtaking. 7 p.m., I said. Don't be late this time. We won't. We'll be early. I hung up. I dropped the phone onto the sofa as if it were contaminated. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer effort of holding back my rage. I had done it. They were taking the bait. They thought I was the broken, workaholic older sister who just wanted to keep the peace. They thought I was rolling over. They had no idea that I wasn't bringing a surrender flag. I was bringing a nuke. I spent the next hour preparing the physical trap. Monica had sent over a draft of a property settlement agreement. It looked official. It had all the right legal headers. But the content? It was nonsense. It was a dummy document designed to keep them busy reading while I prepared the real blow. Then, I prepared the real document. The prenup. The credit card statements highlighting the hotel rooms. The text messages printed out in full color. The printouts of Derek's Tinder profile. I put them all in separate, color-coded folders inside my briefcase. Blue for the prenup. Red for the fraud. Black for the texts. I felt like a general arranging my troops. My phone buzzed again. It was Derek this time. Stacy told me the news. Thank you, Val. You're doing the right thing. I know this is hard, but we'll always be family. I promise I'll take good care of the condo. I didn't reply. I just starred the message. Evidence. Evidence of his entitlement. Evidence that he truly believed he was going to walk away with my life's work. I walked to the closet and pulled out my outfit for tomorrow. I wasn't going to wear emerald green. No. That was the color of hope. I chose a suit. A sharp, tailored black suit with a white silk blouse. It was severe. It was professional. It was the suit I wore when I had to fire the VP of sales last year for embezzlement. It was my executioner's outfit. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked different. The softness was gone. The woman staring back at me wasn't a wife anymore. She wasn't a sister. She was a CEO facing a hostile takeover. Get some sleep, Val, I told my reflection. Tomorrow, we go to war. Friday night was a blur of methodical destruction. I couldn't stay in the condo with Derek's things staring at me. Every object was a lie. The espresso machine he insisted we needed but never learned to use. The framed photo of us in Maui, where I now realized he had probably spent half the trip texting other women from the hotel bathroom. I grabbed a roll of heavy-duty trash bags. I started in the bathroom. His cologne, his razor, his fancy hair products. Swipe. Into the bag. I didn't organize them. I didn't care if the bottles broke. I moved to the closet. His suits. The suits I bought him for his interviews. The silk ties. The shoes. I pulled them off the hangers in clumps, the wire hangers clattering to the floor like hail. I wasn't packing for him. I was erasing him. By midnight, the living room was filled with 6 black garbage bags. They looked like body bags. I sat on the floor in the middle of the empty living room, a glass of cheap wine in my hand. I had poured the good stuff down the sink, remember? The rain had started again, tapping a melancholy rhythm against the floor-to-ceiling windows. I looked at the space where his gaming chair used to be. I looked at the empty shelf where his collection of vintage shot glasses had sat. The apartment felt bigger. It felt colder. But it also felt cleaner. For the first time in 5 years, the air in the room was mine. I didn't have to worry about his moods. I didn't have to worry if he was happy, if he was bored, if he felt emasculated by my success. I realized with a jolt that I wasn't just angry. I was relieved. The sheer exhaustion of carrying a grown man on my back for half a decade hit me all at once. The constant cheering him on, the financial juggling, the emotional labor of managing his ego. It was all gone. Yes, the betrayal burned. It felt like a hot coal in my chest. But underneath the burn, there was a lightness. I took a sip of wine and pulled out my journal. I hadn't written in it for months. The last entry was from July. Derek seems distant. Maybe I should book a weekend getaway? Am I working too much? I looked at that entry and felt a surge of pity for the woman who wrote it. She was trying so hard. She was blaming herself for a ship that was sinking because the captain was drilling holes in the hull. I picked up my pen and wrote a new entry. November 14th. The dead weight is gone. It hurts, like ripping off a bandage that's been stuck to a wound for too long. But the wound can finally breathe. Tomorrow, I face them. I'm not doing it for him. I'm not doing it for Stacy. I'm doing it for the 12-year-old girl who took the blame for the broken arm. I'm doing it to prove to myself that I am not a doormat. I am the CEO of my own life. And I am firing the board. I closed the journal. I walked to the window and looked down at the city. Seattle was beautiful in the rain. The lights blurred into streaks of gold and red. Somewhere out there, in a cramped apartment or maybe a cheap hotel, Derek and Stacy were probably celebrating. They were probably toasting to their victory, planning how to decorate the nursery in my second bedroom. They were sleeping soundly, wrapped in the comfort of their delusion. Sleep tight, I whispered. Because tomorrow, you wake up. I turned off the lights, leaving the garbage bags in the hallway. I went to the guest bedroom, my room now, and climbed into the fresh, crisp sheets. I thought I would toss and turn. I thought I would cry. But strangely, I fell asleep almost instantly. It was the deep, dreamless sleep of a soldier the night before the final battle. 7 p.m. The Velvet Oak. I arrived at 6:55. Punctuality is a power move. I wanted to be seated, settled, and sipping my water when they arrived. I wanted them to walk into my space. Henri, the maitre d', looked nervous when he saw me. Mrs. Sterling, he said, his voice hushed. Are you sure about this? After the incident on Thursday? I'm sure, Henri, I gave him a dazzling, razor-sharp smile. We're just tying up some loose ends. Business. He led me to the same corner booth. I sat facing the door. The power seat. I placed my thick briefcase on the table. It sat there like a monolith. At 7:05, they walked in. If they were nervous on Thursday, tonight they were the picture of confidence. Derek was wearing his best navy suit, one I bought him for my company Christmas party last year. He had a fresh haircut. He walked with a strut, his chest puffed out. Stacy was wearing a maternity dress. A floral, flowing thing that was clearly designed for a woman 6 months pregnant, not 6 weeks. She had her hand resting protectively on her barely there bump, parading it through the dining room like a trophy. They spotted me. They smiled. Not a warm smile. A conspiratorial, we won smile. Val. Derek boomed, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. You look great. He leaned in to hug me. I didn't stand up. I didn't offer my cheek. I just pointed to the seat opposite me. Sit, I said. He faltered, awkwardness flickering across his face, but he recovered quickly. Right. Business first. I like it. They slid into the booth. Stacy sat close to him, naturally. She looked at my briefcase. Is that the paperwork? She asked, her eyes gleaming. It is, I said. Before we get to that, let's order. My treat. One last time. Oh, Val, that's so sweet, Stacy cooed. She picked up the menu. I think I'll have the lobster. And the truffle mac and cheese. Eating for two, you know. Derek chuckled, patting her hand. Get whatever you want, babe. I watched them. They were giddy. They were high on the fumes of my imagined surrender. The waiter took our orders. Stacy ordered half the menu. Derek ordered a scotch. He wasn't pretending to be the sober driver anymore. So, Derek said, leaning back and swirling his drink once it arrived. I'm really glad you came around, Val. I told Stacy, Val is logical. She'll see that this is the best solution for everyone. Logical, I repeated. Yes. I am logical. And about the support, Derek continued, his confidence growing with every sip of scotch. We were thinking, since you're keeping your 401k and your stock options, which are worth, what, $500,000? 700,000, I corrected calmly. Right, 700, his eyes widened greedily. Since you're keeping all that, we think it's fair that you pay spousal support of, let's say $2,500 a month? Just for 3 years. To help us get on our feet. You know, with the baby and Stacy not working. Stacy nodded vigorously. It's the standard of living thing, Val. Derek is used to a certain lifestyle. The law says you have to maintain that. I stared at them. They wanted the condo. They wanted the furniture. And they wanted me to write them a check for $2,500 every month for the privilege of them living in my house. So, let me get this straight, I said, my voice smooth as silk. You want the deed to the condo, fully paid off. You want the furniture. And you want $90,000 in alimony over 3 years. It sounds like a lot, Derek said, putting on a fake sympathetic face. But compared to your salary? It's nothing. You make that in a week. And in exchange, I said, you will sign the divorce papers uncontested? You will leave me alone? Absolutely, Stacy said. We'll disappear. We just want to be a happy family. Derek reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a pen. A Mont Blanc pen. My Mont Blanc pen that went missing 3 weeks ago. So, he said, clicking the pen. Where do we sign? Do you have the deed? I looked at the pen. I looked at his smug face. I looked at Stacy's hand rubbing her non-existent bump. The anger was gone. It was replaced by a cold, thrilling anticipation. It was the feeling of standing at the top of a roller coaster right before the drop. I reached for my briefcase. I unclicked the latches. Click. Click. The sound echoed in the sudden silence of the table. They leaned forward, like hungry dogs waiting for a scrap. I paused, my hand hovering over the leather flap. I looked Derek directly in the eyes. Before I give you this, I said, my voice dropping an octave. I need to ask you one question, Derek. Do you remember the documents you signed 4 years ago? The ones you called boring legal stuff? Derek frowned, confusion clouding his confident features. What? I don't know. What does that have to do with anything? Just give me the deed, Val. I smiled. And this wasn't my fake smile. This was real. If you are still listening to this point, please help me by liking this video and commenting the number 1 below. It lets me know that you are amazing, and I understand that you are accompanying me on this journey. Your help is a huge encouragement to me. Please comment 1 so I can recognize you, and now, listen to me tell the rest of my story. I pulled the blue envelope out of the briefcase. I placed the blue envelope on the table. It hit the wood with a heavy thud. Derek stared at it. It wasn't the deed. It wasn't a check. It was a thick, legal-sized packet with the seal of our old law firm on the front. What is that? Stacy asked, her nose wrinkling. Open it, I said to Derek. He hesitated. The arrogance was flickering, replaced by a dawn of unease. He reached out and slid the papers out. He read the title. Prenuptial Agreement. He blinked. He looked up at me, then back at the paper. He laughed, a nervous, jerky sound. Val, come on. This is old. This doesn't mean anything. I was drunk when I signed this. You know that. Actually, I said, pulling out a second sheet of paper from my red folder. This is the affidavit from Mr. Henderson, the independent counsel I paid for to represent you. It states that on November 14, 2019, you were sober, alert, and advised against signing this document because it was, and I quote, extremely detrimental to your financial interests. You signed it anyway. Derek's face went from pale to gray. What does it say? Stacy demanded, grabbing the arm of his suit. Derek, what does it say? Read Article 3, Derek, I commanded. He didn't move. He was frozen. So I recited it. I had memorized it. All assets acquired prior to the marriage, and all assets acquired during the marriage resulting from the sole employment of wife, shall remain the sole property of wife. I leaned forward. That means the condo? Mine. The 401k? Mine. The stock options? Mine. The savings account you've been draining? Mine. No, Stacy whispered. That's not fair. We're married. Community property. Not with a valid prenup, I said. And wait, it gets better. Article 12. Derek looked up. His eyes were full of genuine fear now. The infidelity clause, I said. If the marriage ends due to proven adultery, the cheating spouse waives any claim to spousal support and must vacate the marital residence immediately. Proven? Derek stammered, trying to find a foothold. You can't prove. I reached into the briefcase again. The black folder. I slapped the photos on the table. Screenshots of his Tinder profile. Screenshots of his messages to Sarah, Jessica, Katie. And finally, screenshots of his texts to Stacy. Derek, she's a cash cow, Stacy. Once we get the house, we're set. Stacy gasped. She grabbed the photo. You. I pointed a manicured finger at Derek. You documented your own affair. You documented your conspiracy to defraud me. It's all here. Geotagged. Time-stamped. This is illegal. Stacy shrieked. You hacked his phone. It's an iPad he left in the drawer unlocked, I said calmly. It's shared marital property until the divorce is final. It's admissible. The silence at the table was heavy, thick, and suffocating. The diners around us were starting to stare, but I didn't care. So, I said, sitting back and crossing my arms. Let's review. You get $0 in alimony. You get 0 equity in the house. You get 0% of my retirement. Derek slumped in the booth. He looked like a balloon that had been popped. He buried his face in his hands. You can't do this, Val, he mumbled into his palms. I have nothing. I have literally nothing. You have your commission checks, I said. Oh wait, you haven't made a sale in 2 months because you've been too busy fixing Stacy's sink, haven't you? But the baby! Stacy yelled, tears finally streaming down her face, real tears this time. We have a baby coming. You can't let your niece or nephew starve. You have to help us. I looked at Stacy. Really looked at her. I helped you your entire life, Stacy, I said quietly. I paid your rent. I bought your car. I bailed you out every single time. And how did you repay me? You slept with my husband in my bed. We need money, she sobbed. Derek can't support us. He told me you would pay. He promised. She turned on Derek, shoving his shoulder. You said she would pay. You said she was soft. Shut up, Stacy. Derek snapped, his nice guy mask falling off completely. I'm not paying you a dime, I said. But... I reached for the calculator on my phone. There is one person who is legally obligated to pay you, Stacy. They both looked at me, confused. Derek, I said. Let's talk about child support. I unlocked my phone and opened the calculator app. The bright light of the screen was the only illumination on our dark little corner of misery. Here's how it works in Washington, I said, tapping the keys loudly. Non-custodial parents typically pay around 20% of their net income for one child. Now, assuming you guys break up, which, judging by the look on Stacy's face, is going to happen in about 5 minutes, Derek will be paying Stacy. We aren't breaking up. Stacy protested, but she inched away from him. Let's do the math, I ignored her. Derek, your base salary is $4,000 a month. After taxes and insurance, you take home about $3,200. Commissions are, well, let's be generous and say 0 for now. I turned the phone so they could see the screen. 20% of $3,200 is $640. I looked at Derek. So, every month, $640 comes out of your check. That leaves you with $2,560. I looked at Stacy. And Stacy, you get $640. That won't even cover diapers and formula, let alone rent in Seattle. The average one-bedroom apartment here is $1,800. I looked back at Derek. And for you, Derek? $2,560. Good luck finding an apartment, paying for your car lease, insurance, food, and gas on that. You'll be living in your car within 3 months. Derek stared at the numbers. His jaw was hanging open. The reality of his financial incompetence was finally hitting him. He had lived on my subsidized income for so long he had forgotten what things actually cost. Val, he whispered, his voice cracking. Please. You can't leave me like this. I'm your husband. Ex-husband, I corrected. Or soon-to-be. And honestly, Derek? I'm doing you a favor. A favor? He choked out. Yes. I'm teaching you how to be an adult. You wanted to be the man of the house? Go be one. Figure it out. I stood up. I picked up my briefcase. I picked up the blue envelope. The waiter has the check, I said. I paid for my water. You two can cover the lobster and the scotch. It should only be about $200? Maybe you can split it on your credit cards. Oh wait, I canceled your authorized user card this morning. Derek looked at the waiter, who was hovering nearby with the bill, looking uncomfortable. I don't have my wallet, Derek patted his pockets, his face turning crimson. I left mine in the car, Stacy lied, looking panicked. Sounds like a personal problem, I said. I looked down at them one last time. The handsome man I thought I loved, now reduced to a sweaty, panic-stricken mess. The sister I adored, now just a greedy, pregnant girl realizing she had bet on the wrong horse. Goodbye, Derek. Goodbye, Stacy. My lawyer will be in touch on Monday. Don't come to the condo. I changed the locks an hour ago. I turned and walked away. Behind me, the explosion finally happened. You idiot! Stacy screamed, loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. You said you read the contract. You said we were safe. Shut up! Derek yelled back. You're the one who told me to get her pregnant. This was your idea. Sir. Ma'am. The waiter's voice rose. You need to pay this bill. I pushed through the heavy wooden doors of the velvet oak and stepped out into the night. It was raining again. But this time, I didn't run. I walked. I let the rain hit my face. It felt clean. It felt like a baptism. I walked to my car, got in, and for the first time in 5 days, I turned on the radio. I blasted music all the way home. I was alone. I was single. And I was free. Of course, it didn't end that night. Narcissists don't go down without a fight, they just flail harder. Derek found a lawyer. Not a good one, he couldn't afford a good one, but a guy from a strip mall billboard who promised to fight for men's rights. On Monday morning, Monica called me. So, she said, sounding amused. Derek's lawyer filed a motion. They are contesting the prenup. They're claiming duress and mental incapacitation due to alcohol. We expected that, I said, sipping my coffee in my quiet, peaceful office. Yes. But here's the fun part. They are also asking for emergency temporary spousal support while the case is pending. He wants $3,000 a month. He's dreaming. He is. But we have to go to a hearing. The hearing was 2 weeks later. I walked into the courtroom in my executioner's black suit. Derek was there, wearing a suit that looked rumpled. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Stacy wasn't there. Apparently, trouble in paradise had already started. Derek's lawyer, a sweaty man with a bad comb-over, stood up and gave a passionate speech about how I was a predatory corporate shark who had tricked my simple, loving husband into signing away his rights while he was inebriated. Then, Monica stood up. She didn't give a speech. She just handed the judge a packet. Exhibit A, the affidavit from Mr. Henderson, Derek's independent counsel. Exhibit B, a text message thread from the day of the signing that I had found on his iPad. Derek to best friend, November 14, 2019, just signed the prenup. Whatever. She's loaded and obsessed with me. I'll never need to work again. Time to golf. The judge, a stern woman with glasses, read the text. She looked at Derek. She looked at his lawyer. Mr. Miller, the judge said, her voice dry. You texted this 20 minutes after signing the document? Derek stared at his shoes. I was joking. It doesn't sound like a joke. It sounds like a man who was perfectly aware of what he was doing and simply didn't care. The judge banged her gavel. Motion for temporary support denied. The prenuptial agreement stands. The divorce will proceed according to the terms of the contract. Case closed. Derek looked at me as the bailiff ushered us out. There was no anger in his eyes anymore. Just desperation. Val, he tried to grab my arm in the hallway. Val, please. I'm living in a Motel 6. Stacy is crazy. She throws things. I can't do this. I pulled my arm away. You have a sales job, Derek. Go sell some cars. I got fired, he admitted, his shoulders slumping. I was late too many times. I was distracted. Not my problem, I said. But the baby. The baby is innocent, I said. And when the baby is born, if Stacy needs diapers, I will send diapers directly to her house. But I will not give you cash. Ever. I walked away. The sound of his clicking heels following me stopped. He knew it was over. The divorce was finalized 60 days later. It was the fastest, cleanest legal separation Monica had ever seen, purely because the prenup left zero room for negotiation. Derek got his car, which I stopped paying for, so he had to sell it 2 months later. He got his clothes. He got his debt. I got the condo. I got the stocks. I got my life back. But the family drama wasn't done. The flying monkeys were gathering for one last assault. 2 days after the divorce was final, my assistant buzzed me at work. Valerie? Security is here. They say your parents are in the lobby and they are escalating. I sighed. Send them up. But keep security outside the door. 5 minutes later, my office door burst open. My mother stormed in, followed by my father. They looked furious. You heartless witch! Mom screamed, throwing her purse on my desk. You actually did it! You left him homeless. You left your pregnant sister in a trailer. Hello to you too, Mom, I said, not looking up from my laptop. Don't you get smart with me? Dad yelled. We raised you better than this. How can you sleep at night knowing your family is suffering while you sit in this ivory tower? I sleep very well, actually, I said. Because I'm not the one sleeping with my brother-in-law. That was a mistake. Mom waved her hand. Stacy apologized. She sent you a letter. She sent me a text asking for $5,000, I corrected. They are living in a trailer park, Valerie. Mom was crying now. A trailer. The roof leaks. Derek is working at a gas station. It's humiliating. For us. I said, standing up. There it is. It's humiliating for you. You don't care that they betrayed me. You care that your friends at the country club might find out your golden child is white trash. How dare you? Dad stepped forward, his face red. No, how dare you? I slammed my hand on the desk. I supported this family for 10 years. I paid for your cruises. I paid for your cars. And the moment I needed you to stand by me, you chose the cheaters. You chose the liars. I reached into my drawer and pulled out a USB drive. You want to talk about humiliation? I asked. Do you remember Grandma's diamond ring? The one that went missing 5 years ago? The one you fired Maria the housekeeper for stealing? Mom froze. What about it? I found a video on Derek's iPad, I said. From Stacy's old phone backup. She filmed herself wearing it. She pawned it, Mom. To pay for a trip to Cabo with her boyfriend at the time. I plugged the drive into my large monitor. I played the video. There was Stacy, 5 years younger, laughing, holding up the ring. Got $2,000 for this old rock. Cabo, here we come. Mom watched the video. Her face went slack. Dad looked like he was going to have a stroke. They had destroyed an innocent housekeeper's life to protect Stacy, assuming it was a stranger. Now, the undeniable proof was staring them in the face. Their angel was a thief. She must have been desperate, Mom whispered, still trying to find an excuse. The denial was pathological. Get out, I said. Valerie, please. Get out. I pressed the intercom button. Security? Please escort Mr. and Mrs. Sterling from the building. And ban them from the premises. 2 large guards appeared at the door. My parents looked at me with shock. They had never seen me like this. They thought they could bully me into submission like they did when I was 12. If you walk out that door, Dad said, trying to regain some dignity, you are no daughter of ours. I haven't been your daughter for a long time, I said. I've just been your banker. And the bank is closed. They were escorted out. I watched them go. I sat down in my chair. I felt a pang of grief, mourning the parents I wished I had, not the ones I actually had. But mostly, I felt lighter. The final cord was cut. I didn't seek out information about them, but Seattle is a small town, and Monica has ears everywhere. Over the next year, the updates trickled in like a slow, satisfying drip of justice. Derek and Stacy's grand romance lasted exactly 4 months after the money ran out. Without my income to subsidize their lifestyle, reality hit them like a freight train. They couldn't afford an apartment in the city. They moved into a cheap rental in a rundown area south of the airport, not quite a trailer park, but close. Derek lost his job at the dealership. Word got around that he was unreliable and facing legal trouble. He ended up working at a used car lot, the kind with the inflatable tube men out front, working on commission only. He was terrible at it. Stacy had the baby. A girl. They named her Bella. According to Monica, who saw the police reports, the domestic dispute started soon after. Loud arguments. Neighbors calling the cops. Stacy screamed that Derek was a loser. Derek screamed that Stacy was a trap. Derek eventually moved out, or was kicked out, and moved into his parents' basement. Stacy's parents, my parents. My parents, now stripped of my financial support, were struggling. They had to refinance their house to support Stacy and the baby. Their retirement dream of traveling Europe was gone. They were now full-time babysitters to a screaming infant and landlords to a sullen, unemployed son-in-law, well, almost son-in-law. Stacy had to get a job. For the first time in her life, she had to work a real 9 to 5. She got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. I heard she hated it. She had to take the bus because her car was repossessed. One rainy Tuesday, I was stopped at a red light downtown. I looked out the window and saw a man walking in the rain without an umbrella. He was wearing a cheap, ill-fitting suit. He looked older, heavier. His hair was thinning. It was Derek. He was waiting for the bus. He looked defeated. He looked miserable. The light turned green. I didn't honk. I didn't wave. I just pressed the accelerator of my new Porsche, a divorce present to myself, and drove away. I didn't feel happy seeing him like that. I just felt nothing. He was a stranger. A lesson I had learned and moved past. Stacy tried to reach out once more. A DM on Instagram from a burner account. Val, Bella is sick. She needs meds. Please. I'm sorry. I called the pharmacy near her address. I paid for the prescription anonymously. I had it delivered. Then I blocked the account. I would not let the child suffer, but I would not open the door. Not even a crack. 2 years later, I was standing on the balcony of my new penthouse. It was overlooking Pike Place Market, the Sound glittering in the summer sun. I wasn't wearing black anymore. I was wearing a soft yellow sundress. Coffee? A deep voice asked behind me. I turned. Grant was standing there, holding 2 mugs. Grant was an architect I had met at a charity gala. He was 40, divorced, with 2 teenage kids who lived with his ex-wife, amicably. He was everything Derek wasn't. He was established. He was kind. And he was fiercely independent. When we started getting serious, I brought up the topic of a prenup. I was terrified he would react like Derek. Instead, Grant had laughed. Val, I was going to ask you for one. I've got my own firm to protect, and I want to make sure your assets stay yours. I fell in love with you, not your stock portfolio. He signed it without blinking. He read every page, asked intelligent questions, and then signed. We didn't combine finances. We split the bills proportional to income. It was unromantic to some, maybe, but to me, it was the sexiest thing in the world. It was respect. What are you thinking about? Grant asked, handing me the mug. He wrapped an arm around my waist. Just how far I've come, I said, leaning into him. My career had skyrocketed. I was now the CEO, not just the COO. I had launched a mentorship program for young women in business, teaching them about financial literacy and legal protection. You look happy, Grant said, kissing the top of my head. I am, I smiled. And I meant it. The anger was gone. The need for revenge was gone. The only thing left was gratitude. Gratitude that the envelope had been in the safe. Gratitude that they had shown their true colors before I wasted another 5 years. Gratitude that the rain eventually stopped. On my 35th birthday, I received an email. It bypassed my spam filter because it was sent from a new address. Subject, Happy Birthday/update. Val. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But it's your birthday, and I couldn't let it pass without saying something. Stacy left me. She met a guy at the dentist's office. Some contractor. She moved in with him last month and took Bella. I hardly see my daughter anymore. I'm living in a studio apartment in Tacoma. I'm working at a logistics warehouse now, ironic, right? I drive a forklift. I think about that night at the Velvet Oak every day. I think about how arrogant I was. I think about how I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me for a cheap thrill and a delusion of easy money. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter now, but I am. You were right about everything. You were right about the prenup. You were right about me. I hope you're happy. You deserve it. Derek. I read the email twice. I looked at the cursor hovering over the reply button. I could write back. I could tell him I was happy. I could tell him about Grant. I could tell him that I forgave him, or that I hated him. But then I realized he didn't deserve my words. He didn't deserve my energy. He was a ghost. I moved the mouse. Delete. Block sender. I closed the laptop. Grant walked into the room, holding a garment bag. Ready for dinner? The reservation is at 7 o'clock. Where are we going? I asked, standing up. I found this new Italian place, he said. Or we could go to the Velvet Oak if you're feeling nostalgic? I laughed. A real, deep, belly laugh. No, I said, taking his hand. Let's go somewhere new. I'm done with the past. We walked out of the penthouse, leaving the computer, the email, and the memories in the dark. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't an easy journey, but it taught me that sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who teach us the hardest lessons. And sometimes, a piece of paper in a safe is worth more than 1,000 I love yous. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, have you ever discovered a secret that saved you from a terrible mistake? I'd love to hear your stories. Stay strong, stay smart, and always read the fine print. Valerie's journey reminds us that sometimes the most valuable asset we possess isn't found in our bank accounts or property deeds, it's the courage to recognize our own worth. In a world where family dynamics and relationships can become distorted by manipulation and greed, her story stands as a powerful testament to the importance of establishing healthy boundaries. The prenuptial agreement wasn't just a legal document, it was a symbol of self-respect that ultimately became her shield against those who sought to exploit her generosity. What makes this narrative particularly compelling is how Valerie transformed her pain into purpose. Rather than allowing betrayal to embitter her, she used it as a catalyst for growth, creating mentorship programs to empower other women with financial literacy. Her evolution from a people-pleaser desperate for family approval to a confident leader who values authentic connections represents the kind of personal development many of us aspire to achieve. The relationship she built with Grant demonstrates that true partnership is founded on mutual respect and independence, not codependency or exploitation. Have you ever found yourself compromising your values to maintain relationships that no longer serve you? Or perhaps you've experienced the liberating feeling of finally standing up for yourself? Life often presents us with difficult choices between peace and justice, between comfort and growth. If Valerie's journey of reclaiming her power resonated with you, please comment good below. Your story of resilience matters too, and sharing these experiences helps us all recognize the strength that comes from honoring our self-worth.